Everyone in the kingdom whispered about her, the fat king's daughter. They spoke her name in low voices, like people fearing a spirit's attention. When she laughed, the palace trembled, windows quivered, peacocks screamed, and even the royal guards stiffened, wondering whether her joy would turn to rage. Because when her laughter stopped, silence came heavy as a storm cloud. She was a sight to behold, layers of silk glimmering in candlelight, wrists heavy with gold, her face round and proud like the moon that ruled her birth. But behind her eyes lay something restless, like a caged flame searching for air. They said she was born under a blood-red moon. The night was hot, the air thick with the smell of palm oil lamps and fear. When her first cry echoed through the palace, the old baobab tree in the courtyard split clean down the middle. The midwives fell to their knees. One whispered, "This is no ordinary child." That same night, a traveling soothsayer was brought before the fat king. He studied the infant's face, the curl of her lip, the mark beneath her ear that shimmered faintly like gold dust. Then he said, in a voice that carried through the hall, "This child will bring her father endless fortune or his ruin." The king laughed and waved his hand. "Let her bring me both then. I am not afraid of destiny." But the servants exchanged glances. Even the torches flickered, as if afraid to burn too bright in her presence. Strange things began to happen after that night. The royal hounds howled without reason. Chickens refused to lay eggs. Drums would sometimes beat softly on their own, deep within the palace. When no drummers stood nearby, the people began to whisper that she was touched by unseen forces, half blessing, half curse. Mothers warned their children not to speak her name after dark, and yet no one could turn away when she passed, carried on her gilded palanquin, eyes gleaming with the fire of the blood moon that had marked her beginning. But what no one knew was that the same moon that blessed her birth had already written her tragedy. The fat king ruled a land of drums and dust. From sunrise to sunset, rhythm was the kingdom's breath. When dawn broke, the sky blushed red, and the first drumbeat thundered from the palace courtyard, rolling across the plains like distant rain. The people would pause in their chores, raise their heads, and whisper, "The king wakes." His palace sat high on a hill, walls painted with gold dust, and elephant tusks gleaming at the gate. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of roasted yam and burning incense. Servants hurried barefoot over marble floors, and the king himself, round as a calabash, his laughter booming like thunder, sat upon his stool of carved ivory, surrounded by courtiers eager to please him. Every morning, before he touched food or wine, he demanded music. "Let my greatness be heard before it is seen," he would say, slapping his belly with pride. And so the drummers played. The royal courtyard would tremble beneath their hands, thousands of beats rising and falling like the heartbeat of the land itself. The fat king swayed with his eyes closed, his many rings clinking as he nodded to the rhythm. It was said that when he smiled, even the sun shone brighter, for no one in the kingdom dared to begin their day until the royal drums had spoken. Among those drummers was a young man named Kofi from the poorest quarter of the village. His hut was made of cracked clay, his sandals patched with rope. Yet when his hands touched a drum, the world seemed to listen. His rhythm wasn't loud like the others. It was alive, breathing, whispering, carrying something deeper than noise. The elders said his gift was old, born from the soil itself. They told stories about him, how his mother had heard drumming in her womb before he was born, how even the wind bent to his beat. When Kofi played, children stopped crying. Market women forgot their quarrels. Even the crows on the palace roof tilted their heads to listen. But Kofi never smiled when he played. His music came from hunger, from loss, from the ache of being unseen. To him, each beat was a prayer, one that no one ever answered. And yet, fate was already turning, because one morning, when his rhythm rolled across the courtyard like thunder, it reached ears it was never meant to reach. The fat king's daughter, bored, restless and untamed, heard it, and what she felt in that moment would change the kingdom forever. One sweltering afternoon, when the sun burned white over the palace roofs and the air shimmered like melted glass, the Princess Amara sat by her balcony, fanning herself lazily. Below, the royal courtyard buzzed with life, servants running with jugs of water, guards clanking in heavy armor, parrots squawking in the mango trees. Yet through all that noise, one sound rose above the rest, steady, pulsing, alive. It was Kofi's drum. The beat rolled through the air like a living thing, deep, warm, unbroken. It was not the rigid rhythm of the royal musicians. It was wilder, freer, like footsteps of rain on dry soil. Amara froze, her fan slipping from her hand. "Who plays that?" she asked sharply. A servant bowed. "It is Kofi, daughter of the king, the poor drummer from the outer village." Her brow lifted. "A poor drummer?" "Yes, my lady. He was chosen for his skill, though his tongue is known to be bold." Amara leaned forward, the corner of her mouth curving into a smile. "Then bring him to me." When Kofi entered the marble courtyard, he felt the weight of every gaze on him. The air smelled of hibiscus and power. The princess sat upon a carved stool of redwood, jewels dripping from her wrists, her skin glowing like polished bronze in the sunlight. He bowed deeply, his heartbeat faster than his drum's own rhythm. "Play," she commanded. Kofi lifted his hands over the drum. The courtyard fell silent. Then, boom, 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 boom. A rhythm older than kings filled the air. The beat swayed and rippled, weaving through the stillness like wind through grass. Amara closed her eyes. For a moment, she was no longer the fat king's daughter. She was a woman carried by sound, breathing through another's spirit. When he stopped, the silence was heavy. She opened her eyes slowly. "Play it again," she said. Kofi met her gaze, and for the first time, dared to speak. "Music has no master, my princess," he said softly. "It flows only for those who respect it." Gasps rippled through the servants. The guards stiffened. No one ever spoke to her like that. But Amara didn't rage. She laughed, a short, sharp laugh that startled even her attendants. "You are brave, drummer," she said. "Or foolish? I cannot yet tell," which he bowed again. "Perhaps both, my lady." That answer sealed his fate. From that day she summoned him often, at first under the pretense of practice. "Play me a rhythm of sunrise," she would say, or "show me the beat of rain on rooftops." But soon the music turned to conversation. She asked about the villages, the smell of the markets, the laughter of the people who had never seen a throne. Kofi told her of dusty roads, roasting yam fires, children chasing after stray goats, of freedom, and Amara listened as though hearing the world for the first time. Servants began to whisper. Guards exchanged uneasy looks. A princess and a drummer. Such a thing had never been spoken of without ruin following after. But what she didn't know was that every meeting was pulling her deeper into a story that would soon consume them both. Because the rhythm she loved was not just music, it was the sound of her destiny calling. And what the princess planned next would shake the entire palace. The nights in the kingdom were thick and warm, heavy with the perfume of ripening mangoes and the hum of crickets hiding in the grass. The moon hung low and round, bathing the palace garden in silver light. It was under that moon that Princess Amara slipped quietly from her chambers, her gold anklets muffled in cloth so they would not betray her steps. She moved through the shadows like someone escaping her own skin, past the sleeping guards, past the carved stone lions, until she reached the grove of mango trees by the river. There, beneath their heavy branches, waited Kofi. He had no drum that night, only a small gourd of water and eyes that carried both awe and fear. When she appeared, he bowed low, his voice barely a whisper. "My princess, if the king's men find us here—" "They won't," she cut in. "They sleep with full stomachs and dull swords." Kofi smiled faintly, but his heart beat fast. He could smell the jasmine in her hair, hear the river whispering secrets nearby. The night felt alive, like it was listening. For a long moment they stood in silence. Then Amara spoke, her voice trembling but firm. "I am tired." Kofi, tired of silk, tired of servants who bow with empty eyes. My father keeps me locked in gold. But what is gold when the soul is chained? She turned her face to the moon. I want to dance barefoot on the earth, to eat from a clay bowl, to wake when I please and sleep when I wish. I want to live, not perform my father's pride. Kofi looked at her, torn between pity and fear. Princess, he said softly, a tree that leaves its roots will fall. She smiled, sadly, beautifully. Then let me fall, Kofi. Let me fall and feel the ground. The words hung between them, heavier than silence. He wanted to reach for her hand, but he dared not. In the distance, an owl called once, then again, as if warning them both. The wind shifted, rustling the mango leaves. A storm was coming, not from the sky, but from the palace, from the world that would never understand this bond. In that stillness, something unseen tightened around them. Not just affection, not just defiance, something older, woven from destiny itself, love, rebellion, and fate. Three spirits dancing in the same breath, and though neither spoke it aloud, they both knew. The moment she smiled beneath that moon, there was no turning back. What neither of them realized was that the night had already chosen sides. The news reached the Fat King, like poison in sweet wine. At first he laughed, a booming, disbelieving laugh that rattled his gold rings and made the courtiers uneasy. My daughter, he said, wiping his eyes, with a drummer, a boy who smells of dust and sweat. The messenger kept his head bowed. It is true, my lord. They meet by the river at night. The guards have seen them. The Fat King's laughter died. His great face darkened. The veins in his neck swelled like ropes. Bring me the boy, he said quietly, and those words were more terrifying than any shout. That night, the palace was silent. The air was thick, waiting. When Kofi was dragged into the throne hall, torches burned low, their smoke curling like angry spirits. The Fat King sat on his stool of ivory, his fingers drumming slowly on the armrest, not to rhythm, but to rage. So, he said, his voice low and heavy, you dare to touch the daughter of a king? Kofi kept his head bowed. I touched only my drum, my lord. The king's lips curled. Then it shall be your drums that die with you. He raised his hand. At dawn, cut off his hands. Let the kingdom see what happens when dust touches gold. The guards hauled Kofi away. Amara watched from the shadows, her heart pounding like war drums. She wanted to scream, to throw herself before her father's feet, but she knew his pride was stone. No tear could soften it. All night she paced her chamber, mind racing, heart burning, and as the first pale light of dawn crept through her window, she made her choice. She dressed in a simple robe, wrapped her hair in cloth, and crept into her father's shrine room, where the royal spirit drum rested behind carved wooden doors. It was said to hold the voices of the dead kings, their spirits sealed within its hollow. No one was allowed to touch it, not even the king himself, without prayer and offering. But Amara did not pray. She lifted the heavy drum, its surface cool and strange under her trembling hands. In the hall outside, she could hear footsteps, guards preparing for Kofi's punishment. She pressed her ear to the drum and swore she heard a faint whisper, like breath moving inside. Forgive me, she whispered back. Then she ran through the courtyards, down the palace steps, through the fields still sleeping under morning mist, until her silks were torn, her feet bled, and the sound of drums from the palace faded into silence. When the guards burst into her chambers, she was gone. Only the scent of mango flowers remained, and a single golden bangle glinting on the floor. By the time the king learned she had fled with the spirit drum, his fury shook the kingdom. He smashed goblets, tore banners from the walls, and roared till his throat cracked. But no punishment could reach her now, because by then Amara was already deep in the forest with Kofi, the drummer who had no hands, and the princess who carried the voices of the dead. And no one in the village would believe what she did with that drum next. The river lay quiet under the morning sky, its surface silvered by the trembling moonlight. The air was heavy with mist, smelling of wet earth and sorrow. Along the bank, half hidden by reeds, Kofi sat in the shadows, his wrists wrapped in rags, his spirit hollowed by pain. The hands that once commanded the heartbeat of the world were now still, useless, forgotten. When he heard the rustle of feet behind him, he turned sharply, fear flashing in his eyes. But it was not a soldier, it was Amara. Her robes were torn, her hair tangled, her face streaked with tears and dust, yet her eyes still burned, with love, with fury, with something beyond both. "Kofi," she whispered. "It's me." He stared at her, disbelief warring with relief. "Princess, what have you done?" "I took it," she said, breathless. "The spirit drum. We can run away, far beyond the king's reach. We can start again." He shook his head slowly, his voice rough. "You shouldn't have touched it. That drum doesn't belong to us. Its rhythm belongs to the spirits, those who walk before us. To wake them without offering is to invite death." She dropped to her knees beside him. "Then let death come if it means freedom. I've lived my whole life inside golden walls. I will not die there." He looked at her, eyes full of sorrow. "Amara, the living cannot dance with the dead." But she was past reason. Desperation hummed through her veins. "Then watch me dance," she said. And before he could stop her, she lifted the royal drum. The skin of it was pale and smooth, the carvings around its rim glowing faintly in the moonlight. For a heartbeat, the night seemed to hold its breath. Then she struck it once. Boom! The sound tore through the valley. It was not music. It was a scream, the kind of sound that makes the bones ache and the heart forget its rhythm. The river rippled violently, turning black as ink. The air turned cold. Even the moon dimmed, shrouded by a sudden cloud. Kofi fell to his knees. The drum began to tremble in Amara's hands, as though something inside it was waking. A low whisper rose, ancient, angry, mournful. The trees bent in the wind, though no wind blew. "Mara!" Kofi cried. "Stop! You don't know what you've done." But she couldn't let go. Her eyes rolled back, her lips parted, and the strange voice that came from her throat was not her own. The spirits had found her. Then, just as suddenly, the sound stopped. Silence, thick, unnatural, blanketed the riverbank. The drum slipped from her hands and rolled into the water, floating gently as if nothing had happened. When the palace guards arrived at dawn, following the trail of broken branches and footprints, they found no princess, no drummer, only the spirit drum, drifting in the blackened river, rocking softly with the current. No birds sang that morning, no drums played in the palace, and from that day on, the river never ran clear again. The kingdom never healed after that night. The river that once fed the fields now ran dark and sluggish, as though mourning the two souls it had swallowed. Fishermen swore they could hear faint drumming beneath the current when the moon was high, but no one dared go near. The Fat King's palace, once a place of laughter and feasts, became heavy with silence. Curtains stayed drawn. The scent of incense hung thick in the air, masking the smell of grief. The Fat King no longer bellowed commands or boasted of his greatness. His laughter had died with his daughter. In her honor, he ordered a shrine to be built, a monument of gold and tears. Its walls shimmered in the sun, carved with images of Amara smiling, her hands raised as though dancing in eternal light. But the people said the sculptors could not capture her eyes. Every time they tried, the gold seemed to weep. When the shrine was done, the Fat King stood before it and made a decree. Each year, on the night my daughter vanished, the royal drummers shall play for her spirit, so she may never be forgotten. And so they did. Every year, when the moon hid behind the clouds and the air grew cold, the drums began to thunder through the palace courtyard once more. The villagers gathered, candles in hand, eyes wide with fear and sorrow. But something was wrong. Every time the royal drum was struck, the rhythm faltered, just for a heartbeat. A single note would slip out of place, soft and human, like a whisper joining the music. The drummers' hands would tremble, though they did not know why. Some said it was only grief, that the king's sorrow had cursed the rhythm itself. Others swore they saw shadows moving near the golden shrine, two figures swaying together in silence. Once, an old drummer dropped his sticks mid-song, pale with terror. "Someone else was playing," he whispered. someone behind me. But when he turned, there was no one there, only the flicker of candles and the chill of unseen breath. The king heard the whispers and silenced them with threats. "My daughter is at peace," he said. "Play louder so she may hear and smile." And the drummers obeyed, but their hearts beat unevenly, like men playing against a ghost's rhythm. Still, each year they gathered. Each year the golden shrine gleamed, and each year, when the royal drum spoke, the same strange shiver passed through every listener, a feeling of love and loss tangled in the air, as if two spirits danced nearby, unseen yet close enough to touch. Yet no one dared to speak of what they truly felt in those moments, because deep down, everyone already knew. Many years passed, and the fat king grew old and slow. His beard turned white, his eyes dimmed, and the great rings that once gleamed on his fingers now hung loose. The palace still glittered, but the sound of joy had long left its halls. He spoke little, smiled less, and spent his nights sitting by the golden shrine, staring at his daughter's carved face, waiting for a forgiveness that never came. Then one season, during the Feast of Drums, the king ordered a great celebration. "Let there be music," he said wearily. "Let my kingdom remember what it means to live." The courtyards filled with color once more, cloth banners fluttering, torches flaring, the scent of roasted yam and honey drifting through the air. The royal drummers gathered, and the rhythm began, deep and steady, like the heart of the earth awakening. The fat king sat on his throne, trying to let the sound fill the hollow in his chest. And then, through the crowd, came an old beggar. His back was bent, his robes ragged, his wrists wrapped in dirty cloth. The guards moved to drive him away, but the king lifted a hand. "Let him stay," he said. "A fest without witnesses is a ghost's banquet." The beggar bowed low, then stood at the edge of the courtyard, silent as the drums thundered on. But when the royal drum sounded, the sacred one, the spirit drum, the old man lifted his head. Slowly, softly, he began to hum. It was a haunting tune, gentle, trembling, and old. The same melody Princess Amara once sang as a child when she watched the sunset from her balcony. The drummers faltered, the air thickened, the king froze. His goblet fell from his hand and rolled across the floor. "Who taught you that song?" he demanded, his voice cracking like dry wood. The beggar looked up. His eyes were clouded, but there was something familiar in them, something that saw beyond the years. A faint smile touched his lips. "Your daughter did," he said quietly, "in the place where the drums never sleep." A hush fell over the hall. The torches flickered. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled. The king's heart began to pound harder and harder until pain gripped his chest like a tightening rope. He tried to speak, to call for his guards, but his voice failed him, and as he fell to his knees, the royal drum began to play on its own. Slow, mournful, steady, the rhythm rose through the air, soft, sorrowful, forgiving. The drummers dropped their sticks. No one dared move. The old beggar simply closed his eyes and wept. When the sound faded, the fat king lay still, his hand clutching the floor, his crown toppled beside him. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying that last faint rhythm across the river, through the mango trees, into the night. They say it sounded like two hearts beating together, one of gold, one of dust, at last in peace. And from that night on, whenever the royal drum is played, its final note always bends, as if carried away by unseen hands, like forgiveness on the wind. They say that in the years that followed, the kingdom changed. The golden palace grew quiet, its walls cracked with ivy, and the fat king's name faded into the dust of forgotten songs. Yet the sound of drums never truly left the land. It lived on, in the markets, in the festivals, in the laughter of children tapping their hands against empty pots. And sometimes, when the drummers gathered at dusk, the rhythm would stumble for just a heartbeat. The elders would nod knowingly and whisper, "When a drummer's rhythm falters, a spirit is near." The young ones laughed, but the old ones remembered the curse, the love, the sound that once split the night apart. Down by the river, where reeds swayed and frogs sang their endless chorus, strange things still happened. On certain nights when the moon refused to rise, fishermen would see them, two faint shadows moving along the bank, one tall and proud, wrapped in the ghost of royal silk, the other lean, bent slightly forward, as though listening to a rhythm only he could hear. The two would draw close, and the air would fill with the faintest hum of drums, low, distant, sorrowful, yet somehow sweet. The ripples on the water would shimmer as if keeping time, and for a moment the living and the dead would share the same heartbeat. Then, as the wind stirred the trees, the shadows would fade back into the mist, leaving only silence and a single drumbeat echoing faintly across the dark river. The villagers still tell their children, if you ever hear a rhythm when no hands are playing, do not be afraid. It is only Princess Amara and her poor drummer dancing again beneath the stars. And so their story lives on, part warning, part wonder, reminding every soul that love, once bound by chains, will find its freedom, even if it must dance in the world of spirits to do so. They say that every story leaves behind an echo, and this one lingers like a heartbeat after the music stops. The golden shrine still stands, but the wind hums through its cracks, whispering a truth the king never understood. A king's gold cannot buy peace for his heart. No matter how high his throne, how loud his drums, or how heavy his crown, none of it can quiet the ache of pride or undo the wounds of love denied. And a song born from love, once released into the world, never dies. It drifts through generations, carried by voices, by drums, by memory itself. So when you hear the rhythm of a lone drummer under the stars, or the soft hum of a tune that feels older than you can name, listen closely. It may be the echo of Kofi and Princess Amara, reminding us that love, when true, endures longer than gold, and that no crown, no kingdom, no wall of power can silence the song of a heart that dares to be free.